Good morning. Hi, my name is Lisa Wiggs. I'm the newest board member of the Genesis Block Foundation, and I joined, I guess because Tracy asked me to, but also to learn more about small businesses and do what I can to help budding entrepreneurs take their ideas to fruition. I come from corporate America, I retired a couple of years ago, and I decided to start a small little business making tomato pies. For how many people know what a tomato pie is?
I do now.
I was surprised how many people did not. But I started selling them at the Wrightsville Beach Farmers Market this year, and that was fun. I used the Block Eats commissary that Genesis Block has up on the North Campus of Cape Fear Community College, and what a great resource that is. For maybe food truck vendors that want to try their hand at brick and mortar. So that's been a great addition to the Genesis Block Foundation. And my contribution to the board is to help with fundraising, and so that we can fund our Jumpstart Academy sponsorships with those that want to go through that. And our fundraiser will be a Taste of Trucks next May. So some of our clients are food truck vendors, and so we're going to have a friendly competition in downtown Wilmington with food trucks. So stay tuned on that. We support and encourage minority businesses, and there's a couple of examples today of entrepreneurs that have gone through the process. Elaborate Outings was part of the first Jumpstart Academy, and she did the lovely decorations of it. And then Creators Print House was part of our very first Back on the Block Accelerator, and as a print sponsor. So I'd like to recognize our sponsors, because without them we could not have this lovely lunch and event. So the presenting sponsors is First National Bank and North Carolina DOT. Premium sponsors are Cape Fear Community College Small Business Center, Greater Wilmington Business Journal, NC IDEA, UNCW Center of Entrepreneur and Innovation, and how about that lunch? Thank Hatch for a delicious lunch. Nothing But Cakes provided the delicious cupcakes there's still a few back there on the table, so grab you one. And then our supplier diversity sponsors are McKinley Building Corporation, North State Bank, and Avant Health. And please take a look on the back of your program for the supporting sponsors and community sponsors, and make sure that you support them as they support us. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Linda Raleigh Thompson, the Chief Diversity and Equity Officer for New Hanover County. And you all look absolutely beautiful. What a wonderful turnout today. And so I just want to let you know, welcome to the 10th annual Med Week. Can you give up Med Week a hand? Before I tell you just a little bit about Med Week and its history, I want to acknowledge some of our elected officials that are here today. And I'm so proud to have one of our very own, a senior man in his own right, New Hanover County Commissioner Jonathan Barfield. Will you please stand? And I think we have a city council member here. Yeah, city council person, Select Andrews. Are there any other elected officials in the House today? We also have from Senator Tom Tillis's office, the regional representative, Grayson Overholt. Grayson, will you stand? Thank you, we're so glad you're here. Now, for those of you who are still trying to figure out what Med Week really is, of course, I thought it was a medical thing. Makes sense, doesn't it? But it really is not about medicine or healthcare at all, unless you have a medical or healthcare business. Med Week was started over 41 years ago. This is the 10th annual Midweek, and it got a lot of its foundation on the campus of UNCW for the Cape Fear region. Can we give UNCW a hand? It is officially known as Minority Enterprise Development Week, and it traces its origin back all the way to 1969, when President Richard M. Nixon established it as the Office of Minority Business Enterprise. And through his action, President Nixon acknowledged the significant contributions of minority business enterprises to the nation's economy and overall welfare, thus establishing a federal agency exclusively dedicated to supporting minority business enterprises. In 1979, the Carter administration renamed the Office of Minority Business Enterprise to the Minority Business Development Agency. And in 1983, President Ronald Reagan proclaimed and designated the first week of October as Midweek. He also signed an executive order placing the minority business enterprises with the Department of Commerce and the U.S. Small Business Administration. We want you to know that the Cape Fear region has been planning for the overall Midweek, which has been a series of events that kicked off this past Monday. But we have a 30-member team of Midweek planners that represent about 16 different organizations. And if you're a member of the Midweek planning team, will you please stand? There are also a number of sponsors who are responsible for Midweek, and many of them are listed on the back of your program. I see several of them in the room today, and if your organization or company helped to sponsor Midweek overall, will you please stand? Thank you very much. Again, we're excited about Genesis Block's kickoff today and all that they are doing to ensure that minority and women-owned businesses have their voice in this community. We're proud of our partnerships, and we're proud of the work you're doing. Ooh, I see Shamika. We are so proud of all the work you're doing and the strides you're taking. Go as far as you can go, and don't let anyone tell you you can't do what you want to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Linda. Linda, I hate coming behind Linda because she has such that radio voice. Yeah. I just come behind her and feel inadequate. Anyway, I just want to reiterate the heartfelt warmth that I feel with Elaborate Outings and Bobby. I know Lisa mentioned it, but I'm just going to mention it again. They have been, Michelle was in our first Jump Start, and Bobby was in our first Back on the Block. And now they are in a position that they can give back in an in-kind way to support other people to be able to take the journey that they took, the technical skills training, and the relationships and the mentorship. And so that is so wonderful. I just need to reiterate that again. And I have a couple of people that I do want to mention. You know, it's not easy to pull this off at all. Those of you who've seen me run around my fan and all the other things. I want to thank the basketball girls of UNCW. I called Coach Woods and I said to her, last year my event was on a Saturday, all the people that could help me can't help me now. She was like, I got you. We're going to make sure you get through it. They have showed up every day that I've needed them. They have moved chairs. They have set tables. They have done just about anything we've asked them to do. And I just want to thank the UNCW. And I also, before we turn it over, because this is not why we're here, but I want to get it over with, because we want to hear from these amazing women. I want to thank my sorority sisters, the Deltas. When I called and I said, I need help serving, can you guys come out? It's a weekend, it's a weekday, and I just can't get people. They were like, we're here, we're there, and we're gonna make it happen. So everybody that has food in their plate, right now. And now to why we're here. I first met Dr. Shealy on a Zoom call last year for the North Carolina Women's Business Hall of Fame. We were on a panel. I was on the committee that was doing the panel. She started speaking. I was like, I don't know who this woman is, but she needs to be my auntie from here on out. I was so, and just enthralled with her conversation. And she said something on the panel last year, because we were talking about building legacies. How do you create something that the next generation is going to want, that you can succeed to your children? She said, I worked really hard, and my daughter didn't want my business. And when she first asked her, and I was like, I need to know more about that story. So as soon as we finished with that, I went and asked her at that event, will you be on the panel next year and explain how that process happened and how you got her to want your business? So I'm so excited to have them here. And then secondly, I said I had to figure out, who do I know that can facilitate and guide and lead this conversation in a way that the essence of what we want to hear will come out of it. Sherry Shaw Levins. Y'all know her. You know, she will guide this conversation. So Sherry is a powerful force in our community, connecting and supporting the African-American staff at UNCW, giving a voice to the Black perspective through her Black Women Working podcast, and bringing the diverse community together through 3LW LLC. Who's been to a 3LW event? Y'all raise your hand. We all probably have. Sherry is the sought-after moderator and speaker. She uses her voice to create spaces for diverse groups to have safe, open interactions. She's hosted a Black Woman's Tea on UNCW, including students and phenomenal Black women from all over the community. If you missed the tea last year, you want to make sure you're there if she does it again this year. And Sherry is also behind the scenes. Most people don't know this. She's behind the scenes leading several of the initiatives for the CHHS on UNCW's campus for the endowment. So a lot of the projects that she's working on is the big projects that they have coming through the endowment. So Sherry has her fingers and toes in a lot of different things, but today she's going to help us see and understand these two beautiful, this dynamic duo right here.
Y'all can clap. How's everyone doing? Again, my name is Sherry. It is a pleasure to be here. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Safo and Dr. Shealy, and we cut up. I didn't want the time to end, and I hope that you will have the time to be able to ask your questions and enjoy their story. And so what I want to do is just give you a little background, and I'm just going to turn it over. You know at church when they say the next voice you'll hear, we're going to let you hear from them, okay? So Gloria Carney Shealy, PhD, is president and CEO of the Danielle Company, a family and woman-owned African-American commercial general contractor and construction manager in the Southeast region. Miss Gloria, because I can't say just Gloria, that's not how I was raised. Miss Gloria has more than 25 years in the construction industry and leads the company through the motto, building visions, transforming lives. Over the past 17 years, the key business strategy has been collaborative partnerships with select major construction companies and owners that has allowed the company to build capacity in constructing projects targeted in K-12 and higher education, healthcare and life sciences, governmental institutions, multifamily mixed-use commercial, and manufacturing and pharmaceutical, automotive, and aviation construction. Building long-term relationships with key owners and major construction managers has positioned the Danielle Company with a distinctive footprint in the industry. I'm going to stop there because you're going to hear the rest of it as she talks about her journey. And then Dr. Sarfo, amazing person in her own right. She is one of the owners as well of the Danielle Company and provides leadership in project management, execution excellence, and performance productivity. Her ability to navigate the interpersonal complexities on projects and streamline communication make her a valued asset. In addition, Aisha's experience with client, vendor, partner coordination and demonstrated understanding of metrics and associated risk keeps her well equipped to manage project budgets, schedules, and her firm's reputation. Aisha's pre-construction experience includes estimating scope development, document management, and subcontractor solicitation. So let's give it up for Dr. Sarfo and Dr. Sheila Dixon to the stage.
Try to make sure I don't fall off from that. Okay, good. I'll take it. Yeah, okay.
All right, well, let's give it up for them one more time. I could have talked for hours about all of your successes and your accomplishments, but I think that the first thing we should do is just really just hear from you. You know, Dr. Kearney, Dr. Sheila, your journey is awe and inspiring. Just take us back to where it all began. Where did you get the bug to start a construction business? Talk about your roots. Give us a little bit of what happened and how you got there.
First of all, thank you so much to everyone, and to Tracy and Sherry, and all that are here, that came here specifically. Much appreciation for your love, your support, and your journeys, your respective journeys, and anything that we might be able to share as nuggets for you, and that blesses us. I'm a little black girl from Eastern North Carolina, and today stand as an oak, because oaks have strong roots. Even the hurricanes have a hard time taking those down. But it started yesterday, or in my past, as a nut that fell to the ground or was left on the ground to establish, you know, the presence that we have right now. That seed probably came from my father, who was gifted with construction, but that was not his livelihood. He was the first black man to be on sales floor. Back then, Sears and Roebuck. Yeah. Remember that? They had the best toy catalog ever. The best toy department ever. Never thought about that. He was one of those that felt like he wanted to provide a home, so he wanted to have it built. He did have someone else to build it. He expanded it. We thought that was the worst thing he could possibly ever do, because he pulled us out of the new projects where we had a captive audience of friends. So didn't understand what God was doing then. And I think that's where that nut that landed on the ground, that was placed on the ground, evolved. Have a different journey in terms of what I was looking to do. This was not it. I think this was divine intervention, and as they say, it's about not your plan, but his plan. I am clear that I'm a kept woman, and I need to be kept by the grace and the power and the love of the presence of God in me. I'm passionate about my family, and construction is the thing that he has given me to do. So I went to Chicago after grad school, decided law school I had already gotten out, can't read in 3 years. I wasn't ready to do another intense 3 years for law school, but I knew I needed to be able to do something that generated a livelihood that made sense. And so I got a master's in public administration, housing and urban development, and decided I was leaving North Carolina. There wasn't a question. If I had to stay, it would be Charlotte. That's the biggest city you could possibly have. Visited Chicago, fell in love with the city, fell out of love, and was part of a organization, Cook County Housing Authority. Did that, ran their Section 8 subsidy program, and ran the Evanston office. So I got to engage with the city officials, making sure the structures were wired right. People could stay wherever they wanted if they had, you know, the voucher. This was a very different community. And somebody convinced me about making a change to banking. And we all had an aha moment. There were only 2 major money center banks that I would consider. Had no idea about commercial real estate, so you don't know what you don't know. And that's why exposure is important, especially for our current generation. Resume was sent over to First Chicago, then First Chicago is now JP Chase Morgan. We all had an aha moment, because I was just looking for lending. It didn't matter what commodity or what area. Discovered the commercial real estate finance, and it was a deal. And I fell in love with what I was doing. The love came from seeing a piece of ground literally transformed. I did not know anything about construction in that way, so they had a technical group and they had to make up stuff for me. Because I wanted to be able to sign off on pay apps and the like based on my own knowledge and expertise. I was young, so I had a lot of energy. I was an eager beaver. Nobody told me I couldn't, not even my parents or anything. And so I engaged fully. We only financed developers, so we did not finance contractors. We only financed developers. And so I went out on their job sites, rode the hoist, which I hate. You're hanging off of a 15-story building, and just really got involved with our legal team, because I wanted to understand how to structure the transactions, structure the deals, make sure the business was there. And at a point, I got the bug. I was very passionate about what I was doing, and I loved it, and was prepared to do the hard work. And I guess it's important that I had a sense of a positive and strong sense of self, because this is a male-dominated, white male-dominated industry. Here I am, a young African-American woman. I didn't have peers, in the organization, but it didn't make any difference to me. This is what I love and wanted to do, and I did not give deference to anyone. So I say to you, you bring all of who you are into any situation that you come into. You do not separate it out, because that's your superpower.
That's a nugget. That's a nugget.
So I was able to do most of the things that I wanted to do in that regard, and finally decided, well, I can do this. And that's what I did. And put it together, and that was the beginning of the history of the Daniel Company. I started out as a developer. I decided, okay, I don't think I want to invest all of my life, all of my children, all of my grandchildren being a developer, and I really like construction. I really like being the builder, and that's what I do.
Thank you so much. Did you guys catch those nuggets? It was good. Mm-hmm. So, Aisha, you are amazing in your own right. You have a social work background, and so talk to us about how you are starting to lean towards this. Tell us about your background and your journey to the Daniel Company, because you were one when the Daniel Company started, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She was born into it. It wasn't an option.
It wasn't an option to be exposed to it, but I did have the option to join the company. So no, I didn't start in the construction background. I decided we are a family of entrepreneurs. So my grandmother owned and ran a Montessori school in Chicago, and I would spend my summers and my spring breaks there working at the Montessori school, and so that grew my love of children. And so initially I thought, you have a kindergarten, you say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I wanted to be a pediatrician, right? And so as I evolved through school, I knew that I wanted to work with children in some capacity, but eventually came to social work and psychology. And as I matriculated through school, I decided that I didn't want to do direct practice. I got introduced to behavior analysis, and that was very interesting to me. And I wanted to do some consulting. So I ended up consulting with a boutique firm with Fortune 500 companies out on oil rigs, out in Texas and Corpus Christi and all of that, doing those things, working with professionals and executives some change management, performance management, all while my mom is still running the company. And I started to help her with some other things that we were doing, working with some small businesses, some other businesses, doing some consulting from them, because of course, you know, so I sent you to school, you gotta take this knowledge, help me do this stuff. I got all this work, so you gotta help me do it too. So that was fine. And so the firm I was working with was transitioning and weren't doing the same kind of work that we were doing previously, and I wasn't enjoying it. And I was kind of at a space where trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Did I want to join the business? You know, like she had her annual question, you know, the annual question. Yeah, she'd only ask once a year. Like, you want to do it? And so I was like, well, you know, I'm in this period of transition. Let me see if this is something I'm even interested in. You know, I had been in it my whole life, had been surrounded by construction. You know, I had been on site and seen the work that she had done, and you know, she always worked a lot and very hard, and so that part was not appealing at all. You know, it wasn't. You know, I was living this consultant life, so I was traveling weekly and staying in hotels. And, you know, I got per diem, and so you know, I was living. I was living. And growing up, seeing the sacrifices that she was making and had made was not attractive. But I was like, okay. I think we were at lunch, and we had a project had come up, and she was like, oh, it's small, I don't want to do it, like, I'm just going to pass. And I was like, well, let me just see. Like, let me take this project, I'll bid it out, I'll do all the procurement, I'll run it, you know, I'll get the subs, everything, and let me just see if it's something that I can be successful at, that I'm interested in, that I enjoy, to see if it's something, if I can make the decision to take over the company, because otherwise, at that point, you know, she's like, well, I got to find somebody then. So I was like, let me see if this is something I can do. And it was a terrible project. All the things that could go wrong went wrong. I had to fire a sub, you know, time constraints or liquidated damages. Like, I understood then, you know, after the fact, why she did not want to pursue the project. But I was able to turn it over. The client was very happy and satisfied, and I was like, okay, I can do this. Like, I have the ability to do this. I don't know everything. I'll have to learn a lot, but you know about construction, even though there are a lot of construction management degrees now and programs which are very helpful and successful, a lot of it is on-the-ground learning as well. You can get technical knowledge of a lot of things, but a lot of it, you just got to be in it. You have to have those experiences to know how to respond. And of course, you know, I lean on her for her advice and expertise. But then I was like, okay, I think I can do this. I'm gonna need some help, but I think I can do this. So that was kind of how I got there.
That's great. And I think what I heard you say is this concept of intergenerational leadership, right? So knowing a lot about the audiences you're trying to serve, learning about yourself. So, Ms. Gloria, can you talk a little bit about, like, why did you want Aisha to carry on the business, knowing that she had her PhD and she lived? Her diem only goes so far, but she was stretching it. She was stretching it. But, like, talk to me about, like, why was the annual question the annual question? Like, why did you see this as something you thought would be where we are?
Well, I think I primarily wanted initially to not mistake the opportunity to ask the question and give her an opportunity to mature, do her thing, establish her credibility, all of that. And the thing that I said to her was, at some point, behind the question, if it's not you, then who? That's one. And if it's really not you, then I just need to know so I can take a different direction. And as a result of that conversation, when she decided that yes, because we were working together on the consulting side of the business, she said yes in terms of construction. She already knew what the path was intended to be, because remember, all our life. And so, and we're very family oriented, and whether it was going to be someone that was not a family member, it was still going to be a family business by controlling interests of family members. So she would have been an owner, but not a part of the leadership. And with that, that confirmed and affirmed for me that we're ready. And that was exciting. I was very happy. That doesn't happen all the time. And that should not be a discouragement either, if you're an entrepreneur. But I also believe in legacy. And that we carry forth all that we're doing to leave for the next generation to build upon. They may do it differently, and that's okay. But we want to at least leave that legacy. And legacy is more than just a business or something tangible. It's also values. It's culture. It's the way of life. It's health, which is the biggest aspect of wealth. Be real clear. You have all the money in the world, ask Steve Jobs if you could. That won't, carry forth the legacy that you have.
Thank you. That requires balance. Being able to have that foresight. Why were you so fast?
I think I just was not sure if I was capable, if I, could lead a company, even though I watched her lead and, she's amazing, right? And her approach to life and her fearlessness. And so I think it was hesitation around, can I step in and fill those shoes? And what I've discovered is that, no, I got my own shoes.
Right.
And I have to walk in my own shoes and my own journey. And so I think a part of that was just maturity, just growing up. I think also it was, being able to engage in the business and see my own success and see my own capability, realize that gave me more of the confidence to take the mantle.
And I think, that's a moment because, so many of us as women have imposter syndrome. We're in our own way. We don't even know the expectations set for us because we're talking ourselves out of the opportunity. And so kudos to you to being able to push that aside and say, like, my grandma used to say, I'll give you the recipe, but you got to add your own seasoning. So I'm going to give you what you need, but you can spice it up how you want. You don't have to do it my way. The output will be different, but it'll taste just as great. So, you're doing amazing work. Help everyone understand some of the projects you've done in the area. I know we talked about Wilson at one time. Give them some perspective of some of the projects that you've done in some of the sectors.
Yeah, so we, work across sectors. So you mentioned Wilson. So there's a new multi-use development in downtown Wilson Central at Pine Nash that we worked on. We haven't worked at UNCW, but we do have done projects at.
Yeah,
I heard that.
Right.
Yeah, we have worked on projects at UNC Chapel Hill. Yes.
I'm sure there's some Chapel Hill folks.
Yes. And we actually redid years ago now the women's basketball stage at UNC Chapel Hill. So, Carmichael turns into yes. And we worked at Merck in our health life sciences. We worked at Duke Lab. We did some really cool projects down in South Carolina. Did the BMW paint shop. So get some new BMWs painted. Also Honda Jet. They had an airport expansion, a hangar out at Piedmont Triad Airport. We've done work at RDU. So we have a vast portfolio in terms of experience. It allows us to be agile, that we're not in just one sector, because when COVID hit, all the airport work went away.
Yes.
Immediately, almost immediately, because everything was shut down. But we were still working in other sectors. They had schools that had to figure out how to navigate that. So, we're working on a project down in Pittsburgh, YMCA, and they have an airnasium, which is new to me. It's a indoor-outdoor gymnasium. It has kind of open walls. It's not completely sealed in, but it'll be a gym in the facility. So it allows that airflow. You're still kind of outside, but close in. So we worked on different kinds of projects to be innovative with our changing world.
Let me just say one thing that has been stable in terms of our portfolio of work is K through 12. We built a lot of schools. I don't know where all these babies are coming from. I'm not part of that anymore with my grandchildren. But that seems to continue to be significant in North Carolina. I think we've done 10 schools now, middle and high schools primarily, some elementary. We're on 2 elementary schools now, 3rd middle school starting. So that's a big part of what's going on in the world.
Well, let's lean into that. So you're talking about education, future generation, mentoring, and initially you had talked a little bit about how important legacy building is. Talk to us about the mentorship. I mean, I love my mom, but working with my mom and being with my mom and living with my mom. Yeah, let's get there. How are we managing? I mean, you have your mom who has created this amazing business. You're taking it over. She has her thoughts about how things should go. You have your own thoughts. Conflicts arise, right? You need to have that moment to diffuse. You can't really. So how are you balancing the challenges, and then how are you providing mentorship with room?
Balancing the challenges can be interesting. So we work together, we live together, so we are together most of the time. I think one thing that's important for me is setting boundaries around what is work time and what is family time. So if it's after 6 o'clock, she's always working. Her mind's always going. And she'll like, well, what about we're going to do this? And I'm like, oh, it's 6 o'clock. You can talk with me too. All right.
Because remember, she said that she wasn't interested in that.
That's right. I'm not,
Yeah, you weren't interested.
I'm a millennial. So yes, I have very different perspectives about what work-life balance looks like, what it means. I have 2 young children, so that's important to me to have the time with them. So it's a Saturday, I'm not talking to you about what we're going to do on this project. The talent, we're not doing that. Yes, you can talk to me at Monday at 8 o'clock. So I think for me, it's setting those boundaries around what that time looks like, how we're working together. I think we are very different leaders and have very different approaches to leadership, which is not a bad thing, I don't think. And so I'll, give her feedback on how she approaches things, and she'll give me feedback on how I approach things. And sometimes we don't agree, and that's okay too. We find a solution to, make things happen and do what we need to do. But I think it's about sharing. In terms of mentorship, she does mentor me in the sense that I have to try and pull out all of the wisdom and knowledge. Everything's in her head. I'm like, you need to write some of this down. And you don't know, I think for her, it's like you don't know everything that you know and what you need to impart. And so, I'll ask a question. It's like, well, how do you know that? It's like, well, just because I had this project or I had this experience or, this kind of thing. And so, you can read books and, you can go to lectures and those kind of things, but some stuff is just experiential. And so part of my task is, one, her figuring out what things to share, but me thinking about, okay, what are the things, the knowledge, the wisdom that I need to know to be successful as possible.
Right, and to be able to sustain, right? Because you're also trying to help continue the relationships you already have. So you have to make sure that chain stays connected.
Yeah. So what I try to do, and it's hard to know what you have inside of your experience that needs to be, tangible. And so I need her to just keep pulling. And what I do is to keep pushing by having her engage in every key negotiation, discussion, situation that I may be involved in. I'm not going to do it without her. She's going to be there to see how I handle it. She's going to be there to see, even if whether it's in person or on the phone, she's going to be a part of that so that she can see how I handle it when challenging, questionable, and it turns out what we need and what we want. Or it's a great opportunity, and how we navigate, that conversation as well without, giving away our excitement in the moment. When we go to bid openings, I always tell my team, whoever's there, as they read the openings, to have a poker face. Do not give it away that we want. Just have a poker face, and at the end, you already know, and you can walk out. I think the other part of it, for me, is getting her to further be confident in her ability to do things. So I'll say, okay, they asked somebody to speak, that's you. Okay. And we've got an upcoming event, and they were asking, who did we want to represent the CMT? And thought about it and said yes, and then they wanted to know, well, who's going to speak? And I said, well, that's you. So that she's the one that is out there more, that they see her as a leader of the company in those kinds of forums, and also her leadership in engaging our partnerships and our collaborations in that regard. And watching her grow to a point where, we're different. Sometimes I have to say Felicia is not invited to the party. She does not get to show up, okay? That's what we have that rub. But for her to get to a place where she's willing, because I had 2 samurai swords, and I try not to pull them out. But when I pull them out, a samurai sword, when you cut the head off, it rolls, you don't even know you don't have a head. And so, you don't even know. Maybe I figure it out later. And so when she gets to a point, I'm a dragon slayer, but they won't let me put that on my business card. I don't know why. But, so when I saw recently, she got to a point with a particular person with one of our partners, where some people who are unconsciously biased, they don't even know. And you have to check them on a regular basis in the moment. You can't let it go, because otherwise they'll never learn, they'll never get it. And so she had finally gotten over the top with them, and I said, girl, do this. Send the email. Let me help you how to craft it as well. It doesn't have to be long, just a couple of statements, and the message was clear. And then came back with something crazy, and she had to respond back again, and this time you got it, and all he said was, thanks, Aisha. Right, because you need to see yourself. Some people have a hard time seeing themselves, or how they come across, or showing their thinking is immature, misplaced, and inappropriate, and so you have to remind them of who you are and whose you are, and that they are no different. And you put it out there every time. No, you cannot. You cannot. You have to do it immediately in the moment. You take a pause so that you can, because you don't want to be reactive. You always take a pause. It is worth, the pause could be 2 seconds, the pause could be the next day, the pause could be a few hours later, but you always take a pause so that you can have the right judgment of how you want to approach the situation. You don't want to, right, you want to be able to do that, and that's a practice. That doesn't just come automatically. That's a practice. The first time around, you doggone it, it comes out.
That's Felicia with
no, well, Felicia comes when, it's like, girl, bye.
It is when we butt heads, like I'm annoyed by something that she's doing or not doing.
Right.
Or her approach,
Mm-hmm.
her approach.
Mm-hmm. What? Yeah. Okay, Felicia, I invite it. And then it's important, not invited to this conversation, but then it's important to be able to listen. And not just listen with your ears, but to be able to hear with your mind and your spirit as well as to where they're coming from. And because I'm pretty straightforward, bottom line. She's willing to approach it with, remember, applied behavior analysis.
social work,
yeah. All that, right. I'm straight. I'm not as far up in the controlling quadrant as I used to be, so, you know, there is progress. There's progress. And so I have to mediate that, you know, in some regards. And sometimes I have to say, okay, I don't agree, but I'm going to support the direction that you're going. But I really think that this is not going to work out.
I want to open it up real quick to the audience. I know we're running short on time, and we do have a vendor there coming up after, but does anyone have a question that they would like to come up and ask? There's 2 microphones on the side. As you're thinking and getting I know the first question is always the hardest, but as you get ready for your first question, one thing that I did think that would really is impactful is that you started your business over 3 times. You talked about you relocated, so you had to learn that industry, you had to reconnect with those partners. How were you able, as entrepreneurs, sometime after that first blow, some people don't have the resiliency or the grit to recover. Can you offer some advice for those entrepreneurs that maybe hit that first blow, or may need to go to a different industry, or may have to relocate?
So intentionality is the word that I would share. Purposeful intentionality. So when it was very intentional to go into as an entrepreneur and leave the sanctity of corporate America. To move to another geographic region was also intentional, and the third move to North Carolina, which I never thought would come back to North Carolina, by the way, but here I am, was intentional as well and purposeful. And what I would say is that has been the strategic game changer success strategy for us is that we believe in relationships, long-term, deep, broad, wide. And so our strategy has been that we've always pursued relationships, not projects. Projects are residual benefit of relationships. Relationships, if they're authentic, and you know, relationship integrity is critical for us. If it's authentic, it will survive through the ups, the downs, the ugly, the good, the bad, and all of that, if it is authentic. And at the point, and sometimes it can be seasonal, and you should recognize that as well, and learn the art of pivot in the VUCA world that we live in, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. You really have to be able to know when to pivot.
I think that plays right into my question. So networking plays a crucial role in building a business. Can you share an example of how a strategic relationship or networking opportunity led to a significant business breakthrough? Not this one, but another one.
The game changer is mindset. And I would say it's not about networking, it's about connecting. So I don't go to connect. I go to connect, and I go purposefully. Again, go with a purpose, an intentional purpose of connecting with a new possibility, being open to hear that might be a new possibility, or even nurturing an existing one. So when you connect, you find a common rhythm that opens up the possibility of authenticity. Okay?
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Evan Miller from the UW women's basketball team, and yeah, come out to the games this year. And I was just wondering what advice you had for young women getting into entrepreneurship or leadership, especially in a male-dominated industry like construction.
Great question. I'll let you take a hold of that first.
My advice would be to be audacious, to believe that you can get everything that you want as long as you're asking the right questions of the right people. I think one of the things that I have continually seen my mom do is we'll go in a room or a negotiation and say, well, this is what I want, and if y'all can't get that, we can walk away. There'll be another opportunity. And so multiple times, and most of the time, it's a winner. So I would say be audacious. because you're a woman, it does not make a difference of what you are owed or deserve. You are just as capable. We are just as capable as our male counterparts. And so I think, Sherry, you were saying, sometimes we may not feel that we have the confidence or, the experience of those kinds of things as our counterparts, but I think we just have to be audacious because, you have to stand in your fullness of who you are, take up space, and say that I can do this just as well, just as successfully as anybody else, and don't be afraid. It's going to be scary. Being an entrepreneur can be scary a lot of the time because there are unpredictable things that happen. Everything is reliant on you. But sometimes you just have to stand in the face of that fear and say, I got this. And God got me.
Thank you.
I would add a couple of things to that. Lead with all of what she said in terms of who you are. Do not lead with the fact that you're a woman. Do not lead with the fact that you're a basketball player or whatever those kinds of things are. That's not what you lead with. You lead with your character, your competency, your capability for whatever the situation is. And have, I believe in having not just an A plan, an A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay? So you got to think ahead, so be strategic about that. And always be fearless. It's okay to be afraid, but they don't know if you're afraid or not. So be fearless. When you walk in the door, bring all of what you got. Do prepare exhaustively. I'd rather prepare exhaustively and not have to use all of that than not at all. And understand, get involved in organizations where you can engage leadership. Volunteer to lead the committee, or whatever it is, for something that you have something to bring to the table as well. And that will give you practice, to figure out what kind of leader you are.
Thank you.
Passionate.
Character, competence, capability.
Yes.
Please, we have time for one more question, and I'm going to look for Gerard. I know that he has to move us to the next phase.
That might be me.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Margaret Bell with Margaret Construction Group. Can you talk about capital, right? Because capital, right, is what you use to kind of get where you started to business, right? Can you discuss any challenges that you've had? Can you discuss the roadmap that you, I guess, took to get capital and how hard it was?
So that's always the issue, more so for the diverse businesses. And one of the things that was important to me that we consistently try to maintain and get back further to is learning how to use your own resources, funding yourself. And so that means before you get involved in the business, obviously you gotta put away something, you gotta,
I'm doing that.
yeah. You gotta do that. Make sure you understand what you need to get started. What it'll take to get that first, opportunity. And so you want to create a cycle where you're self-funded. So you don't take all that money out. You leave most of it in. You gotta sustain yourself, but you leave most of it in. You continue to go after the next opportunity. You put it there so that you can self-fund. So I'm really high on self-funding. Now, life doesn't allow you to do that all the time. That's my first strategy, but life doesn't allow you to do that all the time. So what that means is you have to understand the financial structure of what you're doing. You don't have to be the CPA and the accountant, but you need one. You don't have to be the lawyer, but you need one. You have to have those two. But you got to understand what the financial structure and requirements are and make sure that when you get those financial statements, you know what you're looking for. You know the right questions to ask. They say that, I say capital, and profitability may be king, but strategy is queen. Strategy is queen. Because you can have all the money in the world, you don't have a strategy about what you're doing with it, because you want. So make sure you have a financial strategy. Now, be willing to be creative And sometimes you have to make some sacrifices, which we've had to do to get that ugly money, because we need to get through a certain period. But know why you're getting that ugly money, how long it's going to take to get rid of that ugly money, okay? Before you accept it.
What's ugly money?
Ugly money are high interest, short-term money. Merchant, advance, people, lenders, that kind of thing.
And
That's
the
ugly money.
one thing I would add there is have a relationship with a banker that you can call and say, I need this. A lot of times when their funding becomes available, a lot of reason that our folks don't get it is because our documentation isn't important. And so, you know, you have to provide P&Ls, you have to provide balance statements, and so that's having that CPA, that accountant, so that when they ask for that documentation, you are ready, and it's in order so that you can get that money and get access to the higher amounts. You know, make sure there are different capital programs, SBA, things that you can research and look out. But for us, I think definitely having that documentation in order, making sure that your pipeline is, your project pipeline is aligned in a way that you're continuing to have cash flow coming through, that you're allowing that money to, you know, be invested or grow, you're taking a pot. But it's hard, you know, especially in construction. Our business is feast or famine. You know, it can be booming. You know, we have lots of projects, a lot of cash flow coming in, but with that, we have to account for the times where it's going to be famine, and we have a break between projects so that we don't have to go after the ugly money. Because at the end of the day, you know, we have families to take care of. You know, we have to make sure that our team gets paid, that our vendors, our subs are getting paid. So, you know, making sure we are getting paid. Make sure you're paying yourself. As an entrepreneur, I know a lot of times it ends up you're not paying yourself, but try to align your financial strategy so that you're getting paid. Because you have to fill your cup first. You have to make sure that your own stuff is taken care of so that you can take care of the other folks that are in your business.
Best money is government money.
It is.
It's just real. And don't be shy about it either. And as she was saying during the whole COVID thing, having everything in order, when we pulled the trigger, we had it in order. And so many people did not in our diverse community, so they missed out. And then there was a lot of fraud going on where people didn't need the money as well. But the difference made for us, two, one, everything was in order. Secondly, we had a relationship that reached out to us and said, are you doing this? Because I was looking at a couple other things and they weren't responding. Yes, and we're ready to do it right now, this month.
Okay, just a quick question. So my brothers are in business together, and sometimes I look at them like, I don't understand how y'all work together because y'all talk to each other like too crazy. So my question is, what is your advice for opening up a healthier line of communication within business and family?
I mean, that's what she talks about legally, because I be talking to her crazy. I think you have to, one, you have to have a relationship that can withstand the conflict. So if there's already issues in the relationship, that needs to be resolved before you get into business together. I also think you have to have a common goal. So everybody has to be on the same page of why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we working together? You're going to have different communication styles. And, you know, because you're family, it's going to be more relaxed, more loose, you know, in terms of the communication style. But I think at the end of the day, you have to really be clear on why are we doing this together? Are we on the same page? Are we going towards the same goal? And can we still love each other and sit down at the table together at the end of the day? Because all of this can go away. You know, that's not important. The business can go away, but at the end of the day, you still want to have your family. So don't let that trump what is, you know, that relationship that you have with your family. Because all of that can go away, you know, anything can happen, but you want to be able to maintain those relationships.
I would also offer it is important to have clear roles and responsibilities. Clear roles and responsibilities. Anytime you have more than one person as an owner or involved, there's always going to be someone that can make the final decision. And you got to be able to accept that as well. But having the clear roles and responsibilities will help alleviate some of the conflict or the differences.
Yeah, the noise in the system.
And remember, I'll say this too, relationship before issue. If you've not established the basis of a relationship that has integrity and the right flow of communication, you're never going to get the issue resolved. And that's in business, that's just a human dynamic. So you always want to have the basis of relationship and start there before you start trying to resolve the issue, because you'll never get to that.
So I know that we've run out of time, but before we transition and end, I want to take a moment. I know that we're passing the baton, literally, physically, over time.
Short time.
And we have a baton. You could pass. Not to Felicia, not to Felicia. But as you make that transition, we all know that you're probably also thinking about your next venture. So I'm privy to know a little bit about the next venture that you're doing. Can you share with everyone a little bit about the Ashe Institute?
Yes. Let me first say that I am very strategic.
I don't know if that looks like it.
You take very strategic, visionary. And so I think ahead. And we have determined that, and she's currently COO, and so we've determined that in 26, I will be releasing the baton. As you're in a race, you know how they have the race. I will be releasing the baton, and she will become CEO, I'll be chairman, or whatever. But with that, out of some of the work that I did for my dissertation, as I said, I believe in legacy and family business and all of that. And I also believe in do as much good as you can for all the people that you can in all the ways that you can while you can. And so I want to make sure that there's a very tangible way that the journey that we've gone and the nuggets of success and challenge and all of that is available to others. And so one of the things that I have a focus on is building that legacy and succession, generational wealth for particularly family-owned businesses, especially diverse businesses that are second generation. Starting a business is a different thing. Doing second generation is another level of the process. And so I did these case studies of successful businesses, and I wanted to see what the success strategies, game-changing strategies these businesses had, transcendent of the historical constraints that we all live with. What didn't work, why it didn't work, why we all behind, why we're lagging, but there's not much research on what has been successful and why, and how, and what does it take. And so I want to further that research database beyond the 4 cases. And then I want to take that evidence, documentation of game-changing strategies to create, to be able to support. Maybe they can't get an accountant, or maybe there's a scholarship responsibility for doing the getting the services, whatever the case might be. And so that's important to me, that sort of completes the circle in some way. And leave something beyond just our business, and is open to be able to, and this is a nonprofit, to be able to expand the opportunity for success, because I believe that business, family-owned business in particular, is just one pathway towards generational wealth, transgenerational wealth, and legacy. And so I'd like to be a part of that continue in some way, beyond me. And beyond, you know, the Danielle Company. And we got to understand that because we're dealing with different generations, the thinking and approach to what it means to, you know, pass the business on, it may have the same base and core, but you've got to take the ideas and the strategies of, you know, that generation that's taking over to do some things differently. And so it doesn't have to be that, you know, person that your child. It doesn't have to be a relative, but it still must be, you know, maintained as a family business. So I'm very passionate about that. I'm looking forward to having more time to invest my energies with that, bring on the research assistant and do all those things. And so you'll hear more about the Ashe Institute.
Remember that it takes time, and you may have to look at the box and re-envision it, and you may have to ask for help, and there may be additional education that you may need. There may be people that you may need to bring in to, you know, continue the legacy that you do have, but there should always be an opportunity to see if there's potential. And I love it. Ask the annual question. You never know the answer you're going to get. Sooner or later, she may say yes. Thank you all for this, and let's give it up again for
I do this alone, and I'm very grateful for them. Some of them had to leave because they sit at the table, so definitely we are so glad that you came to our city. You have really brought us some nuggets. And I heard this quote on 90.5 this week. It said, intelligence is how you win the game, but wisdom is how you choose which games you want to play. And you have chosen which games you want to play. And we are so grateful to you. We do service work with you over in King County, and we do sisterhood, scholarship, service, and social action. So we are definitely busy during this time of year, and we are so grateful to you coming and giving us those nuggets because they really make the difference. So I pray that you will.